Mr. Holm, the Mexican government has extradited a large number of these cartel kingpins to the United States within weeks of President Trump taking office. Before that, under Obrador and even in the early days of Sheinbaum's administration, such action had been resisted. What has changed, and do you think Mexico's true capacity for action is faced only when meaningful economic consequences arise?
Thank you, Congressman. Certainly, we have seen an unprecedented level of extraditions and transfers, and it has been incredibly meaningful for our law enforcement community to really be able to address the cartels and their power. There has been a major difference. There are all kinds of reasons we could attribute that to. Certainly, the president has made clear his determination to see the cartels broken up and to stop threatening Americans. So I'm sure that that is a major motivating factor. I think this administration in Mexico also is taking a very new look at the way that they do things. They've been very creative and willing to be collaborative in ways that we've not seen other governments do so. They see the threat to Mexico, and I think are very eager to also deal with the threat on their side. So it is really a mutual commitment to addressing the cartels and addressing this shared threat.
Thank you so much for that. Sticking with you for a minute, talking about border and migration. Mexican migrant encounters in Chiapas, the southern Mexican state of the border with Guatemala, dropped by 93% in 2025. What specific enforcement mechanisms was making this possible?
Yeah, so at the beginning of this administration, Mexico began focusing on what additional things they could do to help in stopping illegal migration to the U.S. They put in place something called Operación Frontera Norte, which brought 10,000 National Guard troops to the border. They've been conducting security checks on various pathways and patrolling in 18 border cities. In doing that, they have given us numbers that we can't confirm independently, but they cite 9,851 arrests, 7,322 firearms, 115,000 kilos of drugs seized, of which have been 560 of fentanyl. And so those are the kinds of results we're seeing, and it's in large part due to this commitment from the Mexican government.
And just sticking on that as a follow-up, why do you feel this was not done under the previous administration, the Biden administration?
We had two new administrations that both chose to take a different approach.
Okay, thank you so much. Go into another key issue, and INL's the right place for this, knowing the great destruction that fentanyl, opioids, and others have had in America and families, especially coming from a family where drugs have riddled us with addiction, things like that. My mother and father obviously fought it for almost all their lives. Dad spent almost 30 plus years in prison. Mom spent over 7.5. This has really plagued many Americans, and this, in my opinion, has been one of the greatest issues is what's going on with regards to the drug trafficking. The U.S. border fentanyl seizures has declined by 53% in the first half of 2025. What explains this drop in fentanyl seizures?
Well, one of the explanations, sir, and thank you for that question, is that under the Sheinbaum administration, seizures within Mexico have increased. Also, disruption of the supply chain, disruption of the cartel activities, especially a focus on like the plaza bosses near the border, that has all helped to disrupt all the movement of this. I think that is like the main thing. We have seen street prices of fentanyl increase somewhat in the United States, so that seems to indicate also that the level of flows has decreased.
And just kind of sticking on this, I want to touch on something because we know that in the Darien Gap area, you had Chinese who actually were running fentanyl presses to try and go ahead and indirectly have an impact on Americans. Really quickly, the DOJ had announced that Zhidongjiang, a Chinese money laundering facilitator with ties to the Mexican cartels, was extradited from Mexico to the United States to face narcotics money laundering charges. What is your assessment of China's role in financing and supplying Mexican drug cartel organizations?
Can I ask, sir, are you talking about individual Chinese and private companies, or?
Let's go ahead and go with individual and state-based, because we know that the CCP has been highly involved within the Western Hemisphere to expand not only the economic coercion they attempted in Nicaragua as well as for Panama and Honduras, but also for what they've been doing with trying to finance, in many cases, a geopolitical expansion within the region to try and go ahead and force America into a pretty difficult position.
Well, sir, there are absolutely Chinese individuals and companies that have been involved in obviously selling the precursors into the region or diverting it through third countries and then to the region, primarily to Mexico, but we've seen also to Central America. And I think we're also focused very much on what's called the Chinese Money Laundering Organization, which is really more of a network of individuals and companies that are involved in laundering a lot of the proceeds of the cartels. So there definitely is this involvement. I can say in part of the Chinese government, I think the key thing to mention is the November 10 agreement between President Trump and President Xi, where they started to really control the export of these precursors. So that's what we've been demanding from China. They're now complying. We need to see them continue to control those precursors because that is the main source of it for the region. So we'll see how that washes out.